Part 34. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 331. About 10 kilometers east of Avalon Port, there is a dangerous beach covered with reefs. In the past, before the Warhammer pirates came to Avalon, this place was like a scrapyard. The currents brought by the reef were extremely dangerous. After many ships were involved, they would be smashed into pieces, and the ships would be destroyed and people would die. But now, this place has been transformed by the power from Fishman Island into a new urban area in Avalon, named Azure Sea. Tens of thousands of strong fishermen from Fishman Island, as well as Fishman Island merchants, are working on large-scale projects here. The original situation of dense reefs was completely changed. They used the reefs to guide the currents and sort out the water lines, and built a floating island business area on the sea that was similar to the Seven Waters City. This is the largest deep-sea free trade zone in Avalon. Almost all products from Fishman Island will be sold here. Walking on this artificially built small floating island with complex waterways, you can see strong fishermen in twos and threes from time to time. Armed with arms around each other, ready to go to work. You can also see beautiful mermaids suddenly emerging from the water, shouting about their products. Even in other sea areas, black pearls as big as a baby's fist are rare and can be called treasures. They are not a scarce commodity here. Those precious corals, deep-sea seaweed mud, and some strange specialties, in short, almost everything you can find on Fishman Island can be found here. Occasionally, you can see pirates coming here. Of course, they are not here to rob. Because in Avalon, no one dares to steal something protected by the Warhammer pirates. The purpose of their coming here is also very simple, that is, they want to recruit some warriors from the Fishmen tribe and go out to sea with them to cause trouble. Not to mention, in the past, it was rare to come into contact with strong men from the Fishmen tribe, so most of the sea races had deep misunderstandings and even fear of these mysterious deep-sea races. Nowadays, although the general atmosphere on the sea is still the same, it has changed a lot in Avalon. After getting familiar with these strong fishmen, the mystery surrounding them gradually dissipated, and their excellent physique and strength became the most valuable things. A fishman warrior can be as good as a human pirate. With a little training, his strength will increase faster, especially on the sea, where they have a natural advantage. Whether it is sent out to scuttle enemy ships or used to save your own life after falling into the water, it is very good. Therefore, many pirates have taken a fancy to the strong men of the Fishmen tribe, and want to invite them to join their pirate groups and go out to sea to do something. But so far, few strong men from the Fishmen tribe have chosen to join those pirate groups and go out to sea to cause trouble. Because in Avalon, they have good food and housing, are blessed with 996 blessings, and are well paid. As long as they are willing to work hard, they can support themselves and even live a comfortable life. Most fishermen are rude, and their bloodline makes them lose patience easily, but there are still some people who are able to overcome these instincts. After overcoming their instinct, they will acquire new knowledge and become better fishermen. For example, to do business or something, some people even formed a construction team and became Avalon's private contractor. If there are any ordinary people on the island who need to build a house or build a manor or something, they can definitely hire people like them. What's more, most of the strong fishermen naturally have a very good impression of the Warhammer pirates. It is because of the Warhammer pirates that they were able to get out of that damn, precarious and chaotic place in Fishman Street. Come to the sea and exchange your own labor for money. So even if you want to join the pirates, you should join the Warhammer pirates. Ordinary pirate groups cannot catch their eyes at all. Especially recently, there have been rumors that Boss Orgrim is going to form a professional army belonging to the Warhammer pirates and Avalon. This is the future that most of the strong fishermen want to strive for. If you join the pirate army of Avalon, do you need to think about the benefits? Isn't this better than becoming an ordinary pirate? Maybe there will be a chance to become a leader of the Warhammer pirates in the future? When making fish, you must have some dreams, otherwise what is the difference between it and real salted fish? However, even if most of the strong fishermen are not willing to join these messy pirate groups, there are still many pirates here who are pulling people around. After all, if you can fool one by one, it is better than nothing. Fisher Tiger was carrying his backpack and walking in this deep-sea free trade zone. Due to Orgrim's intrusion, he ran away from Marijoa in advance. He had been an ordinary slave in Marijoa before and had not yet been transferred to the hands of the Draco. Therefore, his body was not stamped with the slave mark of Tianxiang Dragon's hoof. Therefore, this red-skinned fishman tribe's strong man walked in the lively crowd with his upper body bare and naked. Although he had long heard that the deep-sea free trade zone in Avalon was the only paradise for the fishermen and mermaids on the sea, before he came here, Tiger never expected that it would be so hot. He is a great adventurer, so he is different from other fishermen. He has been to many places and entered many countries, but without exception, once the people there discover his identity, they will shout and kill, and even very afraid of him. Tiger understands that this is because of the unknown, which brings mystery, and mystery is often accompanied by fear. But here, all unknowns are broken, and mystery no longer exists, because it seems like there is no barrier between everyone. No, I really don't plan to join your pirate group. I just came out of Fishman Island. Tiger politely refused the pirate who wanted to invite him to join the pirate group. This was the third time he had encountered such a situation along the way, which made Tiger feel very strange. They were too enthusiastic, right? Have you just come to Avalon? The pirate asked with joy on his face. Yes. What's wrong? Tiger asked a little strangely. Ah, it's nothing, but our pirate group's treatment is very good. With your physique, this fishman brother, you must be very powerful, right? Maybe once you join us, the captain will give you a cotter position. Then you will be really popular, the pirate boy quickly deceived him. You are good fishermen who have just come to Avalon. It is precisely because you have not tasted the goodness of Avalon that you are more likely to be fooled. If you had stayed here for a while, would you still be able to go out to sea with us and become pirates? Tiger was stunned for a moment, but he still firmly rejected this person's invitation. With that resentful look in his eyes, he quickly left here. Are my compatriots so popular in Avalon? Tiger murmured in surprise, then smiled and said, but this is really a good place. Just like in a dream, it is indeed the base camp of that adult. After escaping from Marijoa, Tiger returned to Fishman Island, and then he happened to meet the Warhammer pirates fleet returning from the Devil's Triangle. He shamelessly went to see Beckman, but Beckman received him enthusiastically. The two parties even had a drink with King Neptune in the Dragon Palace city. Then, before leaving, Beckman invited Tiger to come and visit Avalon. Tiger had already had this idea, but he was captured as a slave before. Now that he had this opportunity, how could he miss it, so he came to Avalon with Beckman. Beckman's idea is also very simple. Fisher Tiger is the leader of Fishman Street, and he has a great influence on the fishermen. If he can have a good relationship with him, then Avalon will continue to absorb the fishermen. Policies are also helpful. Even though there are tens of thousands of strong fishermen on Avalon Island, there are still more than 100,000 fishermen on the Fishman Island, and they are still waiting and watching. These are all potential stocks. Oh, compatriots. From the looks of it, you've just arrived in Avalon not long ago, right? Want to have a taste of your hometown? Come, buy a bottle. You will understand how the wine from Fishman Island tastes as soon as you drink it. Calculate the cost price for you, 1,000 belly. An octopus man said with a smile after seeing Tiger. However, he always felt that this red fish man seemed familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Although Tiger is a fish in name only, he is the leader of the street, but after all, he often travels out and has been a slave for a period of time. Most of the people who are familiar with him are fierce fishermen, such as Jinbei. Although ordinary fishermen also know Tiger is the boss, but he is not familiar with it. 1,000 Belials a bottle? Tiger repeated in surprise, and then said on Fishman Island, it only costs 300 Baileys. Is it free to transport it from Fishman Island? This is really the cost price. If it had been replaced by someone else, it would have been 3,000 Belly, Octopus said with a smile. Tiger thought for a while, but he didn't bargain. After buying a bottle of wine, he squatted aside and started chatting with this fellow fishman. It seems like you've been in Avalon for a while, Tiger asked. Ha 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 ha, it's been a while. I was one of the first Murlocs to board Avalon. I was in the first construction team, and I even met Lord Neiman, Octopus boasted happily. Yeah? Then why don't you do it again? Is it because of poor treatment? Or, is there any unfair oppression? Tiger asked curiously. No, 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 how should I put it? The rules of the Warhammer Pirates are indeed very strict. Many people were sent to build those dirty sewers and cesspits because they broke the rules, but these rules are not unreasonable conditions, so there is no unfairness or bullying. In terms of treatment, the treatment of the construction team is very good, even quite good, but the work intensity is a bit high, but for us fishermen, it's nothing. I worked there for a year and saved a lot of money. Then I discovered that business in the free trade zone would become more and more prosperous, so I opened a store here, Octopus said happily. So that's it, I just came to Avalon not long ago and I'm not very familiar with it. Is this place okay? Is it really trustworthy? Or is it suitable for us? Tiger asked. Is it suitable for us? I can't answer this question, but it seems that everyone is living a good life here. As for whether it is trustworthy or not, when it comes to humans and the sea, I only trust Avalon and the Warhammer Pirates. Hosgarot Orgrim is a truly broad-minded big man. In his eyes, there is no distinction between races. This is no joke. Avalon has a very strict rule, that is, no discrimination is allowed. Anyone who engages in discrimination is waiting to be sent to dig a cesspool, Octopus said with a smile. Yeah, Tiger raised his eyebrows and also laughed. After you live here for a longer time, you will realize this. This is not only for us on Fishman Island, but also for those fur tribes, long-legged tribes, and giant tribes. In short, various races, in the treatment is the same here, Octopus said very calmly. It seems that Avalon is really a good place, Tiger murmured softly, and then asked, by the way, there were many people who wanted to invite me to join their pirate group just now. What do you think? Don't go, you guys who have just arrived are the most likely to be deceived by those bastards. What's the future of joining their pirate group? If you really want to fight for a future on the sea, then just wait. There are the news is that the Warhammer Pirates are going to form a standing pirate army. When the time comes, you can join the army and join the Warhammer Pirates in disguise. When the time comes, you will have the opportunity to become an elite member of the Warhammer Pirates. Even becoming a cotter is not impossible, Octopus said without hesitation. Pirate army, Tiger was completely confused. Pirates still have an army? Ah, yes, the Big Mom Pirates seem to have a similar organization, it should be roughly that pattern, right? Just when Tiger was thinking about all this, a surprising voice suddenly called him. Tiger boss. Tiger looked over and was stunned for a moment, then said in surprise, Aaron, why are you here? I'm here to move bricks, Aaron said excitedly. The people here are nice to talk to, and everyone is talented. When I come back here, I feel like I'm at home. Moving bricks is the source of happiness. Please give me flowers and monthly passes, the last few days, oh my god, guys, don't keep it, throw it at me. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 332. Moving bricks. Tiger was stunned for a moment. That's right, brother Tiger, we Murlocs are simply born to move bricks. You don't know that if ordinary humans can only move one brick, we Murlocs can move more than 10 bricks at a time. At the end of a day, the workload is more than 10 times that of human beings, and the wages received are also more than 10 times that of human beings. Here, I can earn more than 20,000 belly a day, ha 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 ha, more than 20,000, nearly 70 per month. With tens of thousands of Baileys, I can buy a small house in the downtown area of Avalon in half a year. This is because I spend money lavishly, otherwise it would not take half a year. Aaron said excitedly. Looking at Aaron, Tiger always felt that he had changed a lot. Aaron grew up in Fishman Street, and Tiger took care of him for a while when he was a child. At that time, Aaron was full of hatred for the life on Fishman Island and human beings, and had a tendency to self-destruct. Tiger also enlightened him many times. But in the end, it had little effect and had almost no effect. Later Tiger became an adventurer at home. Aaron also became a gangster leader in Fishman Street. He did not do anything serious all day long and lived by cheating. Originally, Tiger thought that Aaron might continue to degenerate like this. As a result, he turned out to be in Avalon. I met this guy, and this guy, he has completely changed as a person. The aura of self-destruction that originally existed in his body was gone. Tiger was also very surprised to see that he could still say hello to the familiar humans who occasionally passed by him, and even smile and chat a few words. He didn't have the hatred towards humans that he had before. Is this still the Aaron I know? Aaron, you have changed so much, Tiger said with some emotion. Aaron was stunned for a moment, and then asked, really? There seems to be some changes, right? In the past, you looked down upon human beings, and, when Tiger said this, he didn't know what to say. And being a jerk? Like a bastard? This sounds like a bit of a curse. Ah ha 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 ha, that's true. Aaron laughed loudly, and then continued, I can be considered one of the first batch of Murlocs to come to Avalon. Until now, I have been working in the first construction team. When I first came here, he was forcibly recruited, very reluctantly, and even caused a lot of troubles. Then what? Tiger asked, raising his eyebrows. Then, I was taught a lesson by the Warhammer pirates. That guy named Rengar is very strong. Then I went to the port and dug manure pits and sewers for half a year, Aaron said, a little embarrassed. Tiger was even more surprised. Aaron should be a very proud fish man, because he has racial discrimination. He discriminates against humans and is a big fish man. As a result, he dug pits and sewers in human cities. But I gradually got used to it. From being helpless at the beginning, to passive acceptance, and then falling in love with this place, I have to say that I used to be really narrow-minded. Just like humans like to generalize us fish people, I like to generalize about human beings. Then I thought, what is the difference between me and the humans I hate? In short, it's just that my thoughts have changed. Through constant contact and understanding, I also understand that human beings are no different from us. Apart from physical differences, they also have good and bad qualities. When Aaron said this, his expression became slightly silent. Then he sighed and said, when I was working in the cesspit, I got seriously ill once and almost died. At that time, the person who helped me, he was the human being that I looked down upon the most. That man was my roommate. He would bring me food every day and help me complete my work. He was extremely tired. It was because of him that I changed my view of humans, and later on, Avalon. Tiger fell silent after hearing this, and soon he laughed again. This is good, isn't it? Well, let's not talk about this anymore. Anyway, Avalon is great. Boss Tiger, are you planning to come here too? That's great. Although there are rumors in many places that they are recruiting troops, I really have inside information. I am an old member of the Avalon First Construction Team. I can really talk to a big cotter like Neiman. As you said, according to Neiman's internal information, the Warhammer Pirates are really going to form an army. I have decided to sign up when the time comes. Brother, are you coming? Aaron asked excitedly. Tiger smiled, waved his hand and said, "No, I didn't come to settle in Avalon. Such a good place, don't you like, Brother Tiger? Is there any better place for us fishermen than Avalon?" Aaron asked in surprise. That's not true. In short, I have never seen a better place for us than here, so if you want to work hard here, then work hard. Tiger smiled. Then before Aaron could speak, Tiger continued, "I want to continue to go to sea." Aaron, although many compatriots have found their way forward and their dreams in Avalon, just like you, there are still many compatriots in this world who are in hell. I am ready to fight against those damn slave-catching teams and slave traders, strive to liberate more compatriots and slaves who suffer together. Tiger has been a slave in Marijo for a period of time, and now he wants to go back and save these people. It must be said that Tiger is a great fishman who has escaped from vulgar taste. No matter what, he has a noble character. Orgrim is a sentimental guy. In this regard, Orgrim is ashamed of himself. But he is not crazy enough to want to go to Marijoya to cause trouble. What he is thinking about now is to fight with those slave-catching teams and slave merchants. Struggle. Aaron's expression hesitated a little when he listened to Tiger's words. Just when he was about to speak, Tiger said with a smile, "Don't hesitate, just pursue your dreams in Avalon, maybe wait in the future, when I really need your help, I will come to you again." Aaron then smiled and said, "Brother, you are still so powerful. Don't worry, no matter what happens in the future, as long as you ask, I will definitely rush to help you." "Then I'll just wait," Tiger said with a smile. Then Aaron took out the phone again, contacted someone, and asked for a day off. In Avalon, it's not impossible to ask for leave. Only new people. Except for special circumstances, you cannot ask for leave. Senior guys like Aaron can ask for leave. After all, wages here are calculated based on daily salary and workload. Then, put away the phone bug, and Aaron pulled looking at Tiger. He said, "I've asked for leave. Let's go. Boss Tiger, you used to take care of me so much. Now that you've come to Avalon, of course I have to repay you. There are good restaurants here, well, human food is also very delicious, ha 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 ha." At the same time, in the headquarters of the Warhammer Pirates, several cotters were gathering together to discuss something. Orgrim was sitting at the head of the conference room, holding a teacup in his hand, drinking while listening to them. The one who was talking at this time was Douglas Barrett, who had just returned from outside. "In the past few days, through various channels, I have revealed the fact that our Warhammer Pirates are going to form an army. So far, the response has been pretty good, especially the fishermen on the island. They seem to attach great importance to this. There are many people who hope to join this army formation," Barrett said softly. The other cotters nodded, and Rengar said, "We, the black-robed pickets, are also secretly inquiring about these situations. It is indeed strange to say that the humans on the island are not interested in these things. It seems that the interest in this matter is not very great. Except for a few people who particularly support us and are willing to join the army, most of the rest of the human race do not seem to be particularly keen on this matter. On the contrary, as Barrett said, the human race is particularly enthusiastic and looking forward to it." Beckman smiled and said, "This is also easy to understand. The humans on the 4 outer islands are not very homey at present. It can only be said that they have been suppressed by us. If we want to truly bring them home, not even 10 people can return home. It is impossible in the coming year, and the humans on the island of Avalon are free people. They can enter and exit Avalon at any time. In other words, they have choices in other places, and there is no need to become Avalon. Of soldiers. The fish people are different. The fish people are on the sea. Only we, Avalon, can choose. And we have done a good job in this regard. The long-term non-discrimination policy and the method of giving salary according to the workload have made most of the fish people choose. All to us Warhammer Pirates praise is great. In other words, their interests on the sea are tied to our Warhammer pirates. The stronger we are, the safer they are and the more room they have to move. Moreover, they yearn for the Warhammer pirates very much and are proud to join the Warhammer pirates. It is obvious that the elite forces in the army formed this time will have the opportunity to join our Warhammer pirates in the future. Even if they can be promoted to cotters in the future, they will certainly look forward to it. Neiman also said with a smile. Barrett grinned and said with a smile, this is a very good thing for us. I did have some worries before. The most important part of an army is what? Combat power? No, it is loyalty. The army we need is an army that can be loyal to our Warhammer pirates. The fishmen are a very good race. Not only do they have strong combat power, but their thoughts are simpler than humans. Many of them pay more attention to kindness and kindness. They will treat whoever is good to them. At present, only we are the best to them, so they are willing to be loyal to us, which is good. As for those rudeness and other problems, this is in the army. Is this a thing? After a pause, Barrett continued, so, I plan to give 2/3 of the grassroots cotter quota in this army to the fishmen, and the remaining 1/3 to those who are particularly loyal for our humans. Based on them, we will build an army with a planned number of about 20,000 people. As soon as he finished speaking, Orgrim put down the teacup and said, it's only 20,000 UN, not enough. Not only is it not enough, it is simply not enough, Beckman said without hesitation. But soon, he smiled again and said, but this is just the beginning, isn't it? Yes, it takes enough time to build a huge army. You cannot rush to pursue the quantity. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, it is very likely to collapse. My idea is to build a quantity of 20,000 first. This the number of people is not too large and not too small, which is just suitable for careful training, unifying their thoughts and styles, and using them as the basis of cotters in the future. We can quickly expand the army, Barrett said with a smile. Orgrim didn't understand these things very well, but he could still understand the meaning behind it. It meant an incubator. Thinking more deeply about it, this first batch of troops felt a bit like a military academy. Here, there are only a small number of people, so we must train them carefully and make them all loyal and elite members of the Warhammer Pirates. It will be much more convenient to use them as the cotter base to expand the Legion in the future. Then do it this way. Orgrim nodded and said. How should we arrange the name of this army? Barrett looked at Orgrim and asked. There is no doubt that the others have no say in this matter, and he, the captain, needs to finalize it. I read, just give it a common name, First Legion of Avalon, don't be too fancy. Orgrim thought for a while and said. Sure enough, you guys named me. Beckman smiled and shook his head. But he didn't refute anything. Yes, it's an army. What's wrong with having a simpler name? As long as the fighting ability is strong enough. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 333. Cake Island in the New World, Totland, and the Sea of All Nations. At this time in the castle, Charlotte Lingling was looking at a piece of information in her hand. That guy Orgrim started to form his own army, Charlotte Lingling murmured in surprise. Then, she seemed to realize something, and said softly, I see, that Douglas Barrett came to our Totland just to investigate these things. Totland also has its own army, but they don't pay special attention to this aspect. The army is large and mixed. But they also have their own strong advantage, that is, Charlotte Lingling's ability is very powerful, and she can use souls to form a stronger Homais army. The Homais army is the real important force under the Big Mom pirates and is responsible for suppressing the entire country's main military force. The rest of the recruits can be regarded as servant armies at most. But there is indeed a need for reference here, so Barrett has been wandering around in Totland for a long time. First Legion of Avalon, 20,000 strong, not so good. Charlotte Lingling curled her lips and said. She didn't know much about the military, so she felt that just 20,000 people were not that powerful. The ongoing low-level war with the Warhammer pirates was over. Charlotte Lingling is very irritable now because she feels that she is in danger. Among the four great pirates in the New World, the Warhammer pirates are the weakest in terms of power. But if we say who is walking a tightrope now, it is very likely that if you make one mistake, you will be doomed. Instead, it is the Big Mom pirates. Let alone Whitebeard, he is the most powerful among the four, and his position is very stable. As long as he does not commit suicide, no one can resist him in a short time. His intimidating power is why many people call this era the Whitebeard era. As for Kaido, although he lives in the country of Wano, he does not have any particularly detailed information. But it is said that Kaido has completely captured the country of Wano not long ago. The country of Wano has a large number of samurai. Once these samurai can be used by him, the combat effectiveness of the entire beast pirates can be rapidly improved. This is not a big deal. The key point is that Kaido and Orgrim are somewhat colluding. Although it is not a pirate alliance, when something happened to Orgrim before, Kaido was the first to stand up. Give him a helping hand. This has to make Charlotte Lingling pay attention. From this point of view, Whitebeard does not need any allies, and Kaido and Orgrim already have a lot of interests tied up, and they will form an alliance in the future. Is something that is very likely to happen. Therefore, among the four of them, I am the only one who is an orphan. Now it is because there are no particularly sharp conflicts among the four parties, so they can maintain a calm state. But once war breaks out in the future, she, Charlotte Lingling, is surrounded by enemies from all sides. Isn't this dangerous? Thinking of this, Charlotte Lingling felt that she couldn't be too assertive and had to relax a bit to wait with Kaido and Orgrim. Relationship between people. Katakuri, that guy Kaido's daughter, is it her birthday soon? Charlotte Lingling suddenly said. Katakuri was stunned for a moment. Can I remember this? Do you really think of me as a perfect man? But he didn't dare to talk to his mother like this, so he was silent for a while. Afterwards, Katakuri gave an ambiguous response, I guess so. Charlotte Lingling didn't pay much attention to anything. She tapped her fingers rhythmically on the armrest of the seat. After thinking about it, Charlotte Lingling said, from among my treasures. Pick one and treat it as a birthday present for that little girl. Send someone to send it to Kaido in Wano country. Need to say something? Katakuri asked softly. Charlotte Lingling shook her head and said, no need to say anything, this is just our attitude. That guy Kaido will understand. Don't look at him acting like a reckless man all day long. In fact, whoever treats him as a reckless man will die miserably, but he is smart. Yes, Mom. Katakuri nodded. Charlotte Lingling was silent for a while, and then continued, as for Orgrim, it's really time to ease the relationship between us. That guy Kaido, in a short period of time, he probably won't take the initiative to cause trouble for me, but it's hard to say that Orgrim is too crazy. Until now, I can't feel their pulses, no one knows what he will do when his brain gets hot. But there is no special connection between us and the Warhammer pirates. Apart from the previous war, there is almost no intersection, Katakuri said softly. This is true, although the Big Mom Pirates and the Warhammer Pirates are both one of the 4 big pirate groups in the New World. But the problem is that Orgrim and Charlotte Lingling have never met, and the 2 parties are not involved in any business, and they are almost in a state of separation. Charlotte Lingling was silent for a while, and then said it didn't exist before, but now, it should exist. Happy Street has joined the Warhammer Pirates, right? Big Mom Pirates' intelligence capabilities in the industry, it's number 1, very powerful. Although they did not investigate that Stussy was a member of CP-0, they did not know that Stussy had fallen out with the world government and the hidden story behind it. But Happy Street began to get closer to the Warhammer Pirates, and the 2 parties had the intention of combining. Charlotte Lingling knew this information immediately. Katakuri nodded and said yes, the headquarters of Happy Street has been moved to Avalon Island. Before, they seemed to have carried out a major internal purge. It was probably the woman named Stacy who moved these. All the voices that opposed her were erased, although it has not been completely integrated. It can be seen that Happy Street has turned to the Warhammer Pirates and is no longer a pure neutral intelligence organization, and, between Stussy and Orgrim, those 2 guys got mixed up. This is not an incredible thing, but it's okay. We have some connections with the Warhammer Pirates. Stussy and I have a good relationship. When we were young, Charlotte Lingling stopped talking here. After a short pause, she said, choose a suitable gift from my treasures and give it to Stussy. Yes, Mom, Katakuri responded softly. Times are changing, and the waves brought about by the Great Pirate Era will eventually affect us, Charlotte Lingling murmured with emotion. After she finished speaking, a pool of saliva flowed from the corner of her mouth, and then she said with a scarlet gaze, I want to eat cake. Not only Charlotte Lingling knew that the Warhammer Pirates had formed a legion news. Of course Kaido and Whitebeard also knew this news. However, Kaido said that he had just killed Kojiki Odin not long ago, but not all Kojiki's bloodline and retainers were wiped out, which made Kaido very dissatisfied. The hunt for these remnants is ongoing. After finishing this matter, Kaido was planning to go to Avalon to have a good chat with Orgrim and increase some feelings. As a result, Doflamingo sent the first batch of artificial devil fruits to Wano. Kaido's attention was immediately attracted by these gadgets. The number of the first batch of artificial devil fruits was not large, but each one was very effective. As I said at the beginning, these were indeed defective products, but the effect is very good. Kaido was extremely happy to see his dream take another step forward. If this situation continues, he will soon become the director of the largest zoo in the New World. As for Whitebeard, after learning that Orgrim had begun to form a pirate legion, Newgate was just a little curious and did not do anything else. In fact, if you really think about it, in the current New World, among the 4 great pirates, Orgrim, Kaido, and Charlotte Lingling are still pirates in name, but in essence, they have become different from the traditional pirates. There are big differences among pirates. They are more like kings, ruling evil countries. Through various means, he continued to strengthen this evil country, and then fed back strength to his own pirate group from this country. But Newgate is different, perhaps because he has no intention of doing such messy things. In short, he is a very traditional pirate. Although he has many territories, there is no particularly fixed environment among these territories. It is the base camp of their Whitebeard pirates. Most of the time, Whitebeard will drift on the sea, making the boat his home. There is no random power under him, almost all of them are pirates. But this is enough, so Newgate is currently the most powerful pirate, and the Whitebeard pirates are currently the most powerful pirate group. Therefore, according to the Matthew effect, the strong are stronger. Precisely because they are the strongest, among the pirates who are constantly pouring into the New World, the largest and strongest group are also the first choice to join the Whitebeard Sea. Thieves? And for this reason, even if Whitebeard doesn't do anything, he can continue to enhance the strength of the Whitebeard pirates and form a powerful force against Orgrim and others. And in the current situation on the sea, the Whitebeard pirates feel a little aloof. No matter how fierce the competition is, no one is willing to take the initiative to provoke him. There are pros and cons to this matter. The good thing is that Whitebeard has nothing to worry about. The bad thing is that if the Whitebeard pirates remain in this comfortable state for a long time, there will be problems. At the same time, on a hot air balloon over a certain sea area in the New World, Big News Morgans was looking at the newspaper that had just been printed in his hand. His expression was a little dissatisfied, and then he said, change it again." "President, what should be changed?" a younger brother asked helplessly. "The photo was taken by me, so of course it is perfect, and the content is exciting enough, revealing the original truth about Mary Joan, and it is enough to cause explosive news, but the name and title are not attractive enough." "I want big news, okay," Morgans shouted. "Why don't you, President, come up with a title?" the younger brother thought for a while and suddenly said. "Shall I come?" Morgan smacked his lips slightly when he heard the words. But soon, he smiled and said, "Yes, this is big news once in a lifetime. For the first time in 800 years, I should be the one to name it." As he said that, he lowered his head and looked at the photo in the newspaper. In the photo, Orgrim's figure was very obvious. He was sitting high on the void throne, with his chin raised slightly and an evil look on the corner of his mouth. The smile, the eyes are very arrogant, and the overall aura is very unruly. King of Avalon, no, he should be called the King of the Night who sits high on the throne of the void. Morgans murmured softly. Then, his eyes lit up and he said, "That's it? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates." Author, Zippo. Chapter 334. Avalon, the headquarters of the Warhammer pirates. On this day, Orgrim was lying on the sofa in his house and taking a nap. As a result, just when Orgrim was dreaming, stepping on Garp, squeezing warring states, and countless beauties behind him waving flags and shouting, a pretty figure hurriedly walked in from outside. This figure was none other than Stussy. When she saw Orgrim opening his mouth wide and drooling, looking like he was sleeping and demented, she couldn't help but laugh. He looked down at the newspaper again and saw that unruly and domineering figure. If outsiders found out, the image of the King of the Night would be completely destroyed. Stussy chuckled. Then, she quickly walked to Orgrim's side, reached out and took out a tissue from the table, wiped the saliva from the corner of Orgrim's mouth, and then shook Orgrim's face. Orgrim's body called out, "Orgrim, Orgrim." Orgrim opened his eyes in a daze, and then muttered, "Garp." "What, Cap?" Stussy was stunned for a moment. "Ah," Orgrim finally woke up a little, rubbed his eyes and said, "Stussy? What's wrong? Did something happen?" "Something big happened," Stussy said with an anxious look. Orgrim's expression turned serious. He immediately sat up and asked, "What's the big deal? Could it be that our newly formed army rebelled?" Stussy's expression changed, and she said a little funny, "That's not true, you can see for yourself." After that, Stussy handed the newspaper in his hand to Orgrim. Orgrim took the newspaper with some confusion, thinking that "I haven't done anything bad recently." But as soon as he lowered his head, he was stunned for a moment, and then he realized it. It seemed that the Birdman Morgans thought the time was right. Indeed, Avalon is now back on track, and all those things before have come to an end. Morgans doing this is not considered a violation of his agreement with himself. The Lord of the Night, Hosgaroth Orgrim, sits high on the throne of the void, Orgrim whispered softly. That's the headline of this news report. An evil smile appeared on the corner of Orgrim's mouth and he said, "Gee ha 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 ha, is this guy Morgans trying to please me? The King of the Night? This is a very good name. The article in the newspaper, it gave a detailed introduction to the original incident in Maryjoy, which the world government called a general civil riot. However, the focus is not on slaves, and the word slave does not even appear in the entire article. Instead, it was emphasized that this incident was not a riot among ordinary people, but a pirate invasion, and the pirates who invaded Maryjoy were none other than the famous source of chaos, Khajgroog. Reem. Although Morgans had guessed the specific reason, it must have something to do with Moria's troubles during that time. But he didn't dare to write too much here. On the one hand, it was because he was worried about the world government, and on the other hand, because he didn't know Orgrim's attitude, so it was better not to mention these nonsense things. Therefore, the article focuses on Orgrim's invasion of Maryjoy's Pongal Castle, and sat on the throne known as the Void, trampling all the 800 years of world government concepts underfoot. More than 170 participating countries and countless self-governing islands are all sitting under their butts. In the end, Morgans described Orgrim as the king of the night who enslaves civilization. He is called the craziest pirate in history. He caused havoc in Rogtown, opened the era of great pirates, and broke through the iron wall of Imperial. Now, he has left his own legend in Maryjoy. Perhaps Khazgarot Orgrim's strength is not the strongest among pirates, and the Warhammer pirates are not the most powerful pirate group, but Orgrim's madness and evil are absolutely unparalleled. The harm he has brought to this world far exceeds that of Whitebeard, Kaido, Charlotte Lingling, and others combined. Living with him in the same era is the tragedy of the weak, because he has set off the waves will bring the world into chaos and destruction, and the weak who are unable to protect themselves will tremble in his shadow. Maybe he will become the new king of pirates? No, he will become the king of chaos, the king of evil, and the king of night. Wherever he looks, the sun will fall forever, darkness will shroud, and order will collapse. Maybe no one can stop him from destroying the world, right? When Orgrim saw this, he couldn't help but smile and said, "This bitch, I thought he would praise me. After all, I gave him a chance to take pictures, but the result was good." He actually said, "Will I destroy the world? So you king of chaos, king of evil, king of night, will it really not destroy the world?" Stussy asked with a smile. Orgrim rolled his eyes at Stussy and said, "Why do I want to destroy the world? The world is destroyed, where will I live?" Then he took another look at the newspaper, and Orgrim smacked his lips with satisfaction and said, "Although the article is a bit exaggerated, this photo is indeed very good. I like it, gee ha 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 ha." After laughing, Orgrim threw the newspaper aside and ignored it. This news may cause big waves around the world. After all, Orgrim sat on the throne, which was equivalent to sitting on the bottom of more than 100 participating countries. It doesn't seem wrong to call him a civilized slaver. But this has nothing to do with him after all. If it has a headache, it's the world government's fault. Anyway, this is something caused by Morgans and has nothing to do with Orgrim. Stussy seemed to want to look at the photo again, so she reached out to grab the newspaper, but Orgrim grabbed her arm, pulled hard, and directly pulled Stussy to sit in his arms. "What to do?" Stussy's face turned red and she asked angrily. "What to do? Do you still need to ask? The night is long and I have no intention of sleeping. I thought of a great gesture and wanted to share it with you, Queen Stussy." Orgrim reached out and pinched Stussy's chin and said with an evil smile. Stussy said with a slightly panicked expression, "Don't mess around, it's noon." "What about noon? Is there any sun?" Orgrim grinned. Before Stussy could speak, Orgrim pushed her down on the sofa and said, "I am the king of the night. Wherever I look, the sun is always falling. Shrouded in darkness, no one can resist my will in the dark night." Stussy's eyes were a little flustered, but also a little excited and expecting. He pushed Orgrim weakly in his hand and pretended to say, "Don't mess around, I'm going to scream." "Gee ha 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 ha, if you scream and break your throat, No one will come to save you, Orgrim laughed loudly. At the same time, in the Holy Land Maragio, the 5 old stars are about to explode with anger. It's been a while since this happened, Marijoya has long since returned to calm, and even Pongal Castle has been repaired to a great extent. The result is good. Your news of the world broke such big news at this time, and even used the photo of that bastard Orgrim sitting on the throne of the void as the cover. Isn't this a lie? Damn Orgrim. He tricked us, the bald king said angrily. So what? There is nothing we can do against him now, the bearded man said with a very gloomy expression. Yes, it can be seen that the Orgrim guy did mean to trick them, but if he really wants to cause trouble, he can't be found. After all, this matter was reported by the news of the world, just like the Moria incident. Although everyone knew that it was the Navy and the world government, there was no evidence. The same is true now, although they know that there must be Orgrim behind it. It's a joke, but there is no evidence. News of the world is not run by the Warhammer pirates. Morgans, this bastard, is getting out of control and we need to tighten up on the news of the world, the bald king said solemnly. That's right, the other 5 old stars also nodded and said. But the news this time has already spread all over the world, and they can't remedy it now even if they want to. What can they do? If there is no way, just treat it as nothing. You know. Anyway, the world government will not admit this matter even if it kills you. Fake news, next. Even the 5 old stars don't consider adding a bounty to Orgrim. After all, if a bounty is added now, king, didn't he admit the truth of this matter from the side? So he just pretended that there was no such thing and dealt with it in a low-key manner. At the same time, at the Navy headquarters Marineford, Cusin held a newspaper in his hand, his face with a helpless smile on his face. He said, "I've lost all my dignity now." Opposite him, Jun is sitting. Jun is also holding a newspaper in his hand, staring at the photo of Orgrim on it, frowning slightly. "King of Night," Jun murmured softly. She no longer looked at Orgrim with the pure justice of the past, and she no longer defined Orgrim with pure evil. "I heard that many people on Fishman Island went to Avalon," Jun suddenly asked. Cusin was stunned for a moment, not understanding why Jun suddenly asked this. But he still nodded and said that's what happened. "Why?" Jun asked again. "If you want to say why," Cusin was silent for a moment, and then said maybe it's because Avalon is doing better. "I heard that there are no slaves and no discrimination. Whether it's fishmen, mermaids, or other races, everyone lives equally there." "Is this a good thing he did?" Jun's eyes shrank slightly and asked again. Cusin did not speak, sighed, lowered his head and looked at the newspaper again. Jun also examined Orgrim again in his heart. "He can what we do be called justice? Not to mention, it seems to have a sense of justice. Eliminate discrimination, eliminate slaves, and so on. In comparison, the world government has done very poorly here, because the world can't the government do it? No, the world government is fully capable of changing these status quos, it's just that they have no interest. Who is evil? No, we shouldn't dwell on this issue. Maybe there is no pure evil at all. I want to go to G-5, Jun suddenly said. Cusin, who was reading the newspaper, was stunned and said in surprise, "Gee, where is 5? You don't need me to explain it to you, right? That's a club for problem kids. I feel that I am already a problem child now, but I have not yet caused problems for the Navy, so I have to leave the headquarters before causing any trouble," Jun said without hesitation. "What does this mean? Haven't you heard? Since the Marshal's side has almost locked in the position of Commander-in-Chief, he may be promoted at any time. Here at the headquarters, a group of general candidates have to be selected. You have a good chance. Once you become a general candidate, you can become one at any time. General, you are going to G-5 now, it's hard to talk about this. Why don't we wait until we get the title of general candidate? Kuzan opened his mouth to dissuade him. To me, these are all insignificant things. I have no interest in the position of admiral at all. In this case, why do I need the reputation of being a candidate for admiral? Jun shook his head and said very firmly. What's wrong with you? Why do you suddenly want G-5? Kuzan asked still a little strangely. Jun paused for a moment, then his eyes sank and he said, I have to re-examine the justice in my heart, Kuzan, this department is not suitable for me anymore. In an instant, Kuzan thought of Durag back then, so I don't want to stop anything anymore. If I stop it again, maybe Jun will stay in the headquarters, but what about the future? What if she just chooses to leave the Navy like Dalag? In comparison, going to G-5 to calm down is a good result. Well, what's going on? Kuzan said, smacking his lips helplessly. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 335. New World, Gambling Island. This is a famous gambling island in the New World. Today, Tetsalo is still working as a gangster on the Shampoo Islands. He has not met his beloved Stella, nor has he offended the celestial dragons because of this. He was captured and taken to marry Joe Adam's slave. Not to mention that he escaped from the incident where Fisher Tiger burned Marijoya and snatched the golden fruit that Doflamingo used as a gimmick. So now, there is no Golden City, the world's largest entertainment city. Gambling Island is the most famous gambling island in the New World. This place is very prosperous, and dignitaries, pirates, and big figures in the dark world all like to come here to play in their spare time. Nowadays, the Don Quixote family also owns some businesses on this island. Doflamingo opened a very good casino here and also built a residence for the Don Quixote family. At this time, in the luxurious casino opened by the Don Quixote family, a little loli with twin tails, carrying a huge Gatling gun on her back, 2 revolvers and a hand cannon hanging on her waist, and a bullet chain wrapped around her chest, she looked fully armed. Yes, it was the Sphinx who ran out of Avalon, but this little loli didn't cause trouble here. On the contrary, there was a lot of chips placed on the gambling table in front of her, and she was shouting something with a very excited look on her face. He put a few chips on the 2 cards, and then the Sphinx shouted, quick, 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 don't wait, hurry up and place your bet, then. Before anyone else could say anything, Sphinx's eyes he put on a fierce look and shouted, no one is allowed to cheat, don't let me catch you, or I will shoot you in the head. At this time, a large group of people gathered around the table, but no one picked up Sven. As Kes said, everyone quickly started placing bets, with an expectant look on their faces, as if they wanted to get rich overnight. At this moment, a tall man wearing a purple Ronin costume squeezed his way to the table from the crowd. He raised his hand and placed 2 chips on the table. He said softly, we'll count them as the next ones. Svenka seemed to sense something was wrong with the new guy, and he had the aura of a strong man. But she didn't pay much attention to it. She just glanced at it and ignored it. The Ronin also glanced at the Sphinx casually, with a hint of surprise in his eyes, as if he recognized the Sphinx's identity. This Ronin is none other than Fujitora, the top master wandering around the world. It's still the old rule, the name Isho is not easy to pronounce, just name him Fujitora Isho, and then call him Fujitora. At this time, Fujitora Isho still looks very young, in his 30s. His eyes looked bright and clear, and they were not blinded. Although he recognized the Sphinx's identity, he didn't mind his own business and soon joined the fight with a smile. Just as the Sphinx table was shouting, excited shouts and unlucky wails could be heard from time to time. A waiter quickly walked up to Sphinx and said in a low voice, Mr. Sphinx, my young master is back. Look. Oh. Dover is back. You really kept me waiting. If I had known he went to Melview, I would have followed Boss Shiji to Melview. Well, that's not right, they are all coming back anyway. The Sphinx muttered a few words casually. Then, she glanced at the table, then at her chips, grinned with a toothache, and pushed all the chips in front of Fujitora with a smile. This is, Fujitora smiled and looked at the Sphinx in surprise, his expression a little at a loss. Although I don't know who you are different from the others at this table. You must be a powerful guy. I have something to do now. I can't use these chips here, so why not give them all away? You're fine. Sphinx waved her hand very boldly and said. Fujitora smiled and couldn't help laughing, and said, I have long heard that the Warhammer pirates are very unusual, but I didn't expect to meet the famous Rampage Lolita here. Since it is fate, then it would be disrespectful for me to reject it. Fujitora smiled at this time. He was not a marine. Although he also had justice and kindness in his heart, there was no need to fight against the Sphinx here. He also did not intend to provoke the Warhammer pirates, because he understood very well. Even if he is very strong, he will not have a good life in the future if he is alone in the new world and provokes a behemoth like the Warhammer pirates. The Sphinx saw Fujitora smile and unceremoniously put these chips away. He accepted them all, with a smile on his face, and said, You are very courageous, ha 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 ha, it seems that you are really not an ordinary guy. If we are destined to meet again in the future, let's take a good gamble. Of course there is no problem, Fujitora smiled and said. Sphinx nodded to him, and then without saying anything else, he turned around and followed the respectful waiter and quickly left the casino. Not far behind the casino, there is the hall. The Quixote family is stationed here. In the New World, the Don Quixote family has a close relationship with the Warhammer pirates, and everyone at sea knows about it. Just like Doflamingo went to Avalon to follow him back home. Likewise, Sphinx didn't feel like an outsider here at all. When he saw Doflamingo, the guy was still wearing a pink flamingo feather coat draped over his shoulders and an untied buttoned white shirt, flashy tights, and black beanie shoes. Under the orange sunglasses, his eyes were covered, but the faintly evil smile at the corner of his mouth made his whole person look very charming. Evil. Yes, this word is embarrassing when applied to others, but it fits Doflamingo very well. Phew, Sphinx, long time no see, why do you have time to come to my place? Did you come alone? After Doflamingo saw the Sphinx, he greeted him with a smile. As he spoke, he picked up the wine glass from the table next to him, hesitated, and finally poured it for the Sphinx. Ordered a glass of juice. The Sphinx looked at the juice Doflamingo handed him angrily, and shouted, Hey, Dove, what do you mean? Do you look down on me? Why are you giving me juice? Phew, no, this is respect. I know you don't like drinking, so I keep your preferences in mind. At this time, does it mean that I am very caring? Doflamingo said with a smile. Sphinx pursed his lips and said reluctantly, I think you just treat me like a child. Then, she stopped worrying about these things, picked up the juice and took 2 sips, and then continued, I asked for information before and heard that you were in Gambalin, so I came directly, but when I was walking on the way, I heard say you went to Melview. If I had known about it, I would have gone to Melview, but then I was too lazy to run. I happened to hear that Gambalin Island was very good, so I came to play for a few days. The others were very busy, but I had nothing to do, so I was the only one. A person came. Over at Melview, the first batch of artificial devil fruits came out, so I went there, and arranged the goods to Kaido. By the way, Doflamingo explained casually. Sphinx didn't ask any more questions, and then Doflamingo said with a smile, so, you suddenly came to me, there must be something wrong, right? The originally carefree Sphinx looked a little embarrassed after hearing Doflamingo's question. Looking at her coy look, Doflamingo couldn't help but smile. He shook his head and said, we are old acquaintances. If you have anything to say, just say it. If you need my help, just ask. Ahem, then I'll say it. The Sphinx cleared its throat first, then looked at Doflamingo and said, "I heard you have a good devil fruit in your hand." "Devil fruit?" Doflamingo was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Master Hammer seems to have no shortage of this thing, right?" "There is indeed no shortage, but it also depends on whether it is suitable and whether you are interested." The Sphinx waved his hand casually and said, "In other words, you are interested in a certain devil fruit in my hand?" Doflamingo asked with a smile. "That's right, that's why I came all the way to find you," Sphinx said without hesitation. Before Doflamingo could ask what kind of fruit it was, Sphinx said, "The superhuman weapon fruit is in your hand, right? Make a price." Sphinx has long wanted to get a devil fruit ability for himself. When he was still under Shiji, Sphinx wanted to get a powerful animal type ability, preferably a fantasy beast or something. Because her physical fitness is not particularly excellent, she is just very talented in seeing, hearing, sex, and domineering, and she does not have a strong body or special physique. If she gets strong animal type abilities, she can completely make up for this shortcoming. But later, as time went by, Sphinx's ideas also changed. Indeed, if he had a powerful animal type ability, it could make up for his shortcomings, but it was not very consistent with his own strengths. You even have to work hard to study how to develop abilities, etc., which will affect your fighting style. So Sphinx later gave up the idea of having an animal type ability. She wanted to have a natural type ability, but she felt that the natural type ability was not very good. If there were burning fruits, it would be almost the same. The rest is just that. Maybe strong, but she wasn't interested. Therefore, in the end, the Sphinx set its sights on the Superman-type devil fruit. Then, she zeroed in on a devil fruit that she was very interested in. That is the Superman weapon fruit. It is said that if you eat this fruit, you can transform your body into a variety of weapons at will. This is simply perfect. Combined with your own infinite ammunition Gatling gun, you can transform into a walking war machine. This is the romance I have been pursuing. There's nothing that firepower can't destroy. If anything, it's just not enough. Weapon fruit? Doflamingo smiled and said, "This is a very good ability." Doflamingo just got this devil fruit from the dark world not long ago. But to say how much he attaches importance to it, he actually doesn't, and he doesn't know who to give this devil fruit to. In the case of Baby -5, now that he has not joined the Don Quixote family, it is impossible for Doflamingo to think of these things. His original plan was to keep this fruit until a suitable candidate is found in the future. Give it to them. But since the Sphinx is here, it doesn't hurt to give it to her. Anyway, it's just a devil fruit, and it's nothing special. I, the Warhammer pirates, have a natural snow fruit in my hands. I snatched it from some pirates not long ago. I snatched this fruit, so it belongs to me. I was originally going to eat it, but now I obviously have abilities that are more in line with my wishes, so let's exchange them, Sphinx said without hesitation. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment. Natural type? In exchange for a superhuman type in my hand? Or a very ordinary superhuman type, what a loss for you. In fact, it was more than a loss, it was a loss of blood, but ability is not particularly easy to measure. Sphinx took a fancy to the weapon fruit, identified that ability, and liked that ability very much. Then it's no loss to her. Moreover, the Warhammer pirates have a very close relationship with the Don Quixote family, and this devil fruit ability flows between the two families. There is no question of whether it is a loss or not. It can even be said to be semi-internal circulation. Doflamingo quickly came to his senses and shook his head. Are you unwilling to do this? Natural style, Sphinx said with a roar. No, it's not that I don't want to, it's that it's not necessary. Just keep that devil fruit. I'll give it to you as a weapon fruit. It's not a very rare thing anyway, Doflamingo said with a smile and rubbed the Sphinx's head. The Sphinx was very happy when he heard this. He didn't even know how to write the word polite. He laughed and said he. Haha, Dover, it makes sense for you to be friends with Mr. Hammer. You are such a good person. Doflamingo smiled and didn't say much. Sphinx secretly decided to give the snow fruit to Doflamingo when he returned to Avalon. It's not a deal. Just treat it as a communication between friends. Anyway, the snow fruit is of no use to the Warhammer pirates, at least for the time being. No one particularly cares about that ability, especially after knowing that this ability belongs to Kuzan of the Navy. After receiving the lower level fruit, I was even more unhappy. After eating this fruit, I was inferior to Kuzan for no reason. Isn't this embarrassing? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 336. On the shore of Avalon, Orgrim made a small bench and sat on it, holding a phone bug in his hand and a fishing rod in his hand. It's obvious that he's fishing here. Gee ha 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 ha, right? Weapon fruit? My SPHYNX is so rude. He came all the way to your place to ask for some devil fruit, Orgrim laughed and said. Fura is not a particularly important thing, and Sphinx also said that he would use the natural type of snow fruit to exchange it. Doflamingo responded with a smile. If she likes it, let her change it. Anyway, just don't suffer a loss, otherwise I'll really feel bad about it, Orgrim said very casually. When they were in the North Sea, Orgrim and Beckman dared to attack the warships of the Navy headquarters for a devil fruit. But at this level, the devil that seemed so precious at first fruit doesn't seem to be a particularly precious thing anymore. It doesn't hurt to give it away casually. Come on, does our relationship still have to be like this? If necessary, I will speak up. Doflamingo also refused with a smile. Well, that's true. Orgrim didn't force anything. Anyway, as long as it comes to his mind, what's the relationship between him and Doflamingo? So she doesn't plan to come back for the time being? Orgrim asked again with a smile. I can't control your Sphinx, Fufufu, it seems that I want to play here for a while, and I heard that I have made some new friends, Doflamingo joked with a smile. Well, that little girl just can't sit still. Anyway, there's nothing big going on recently, so just let her make trouble. Orgrim didn't mind this either. Pirates are free and easy. If they have to be restricted in everything, then what's the difference between them and the Navy? When nothing happens, everyone is very casual. The representative figure among them is Joracole Mihawk. This guy was the epitome of wandering, and Orgrim hadn't seen him for a long time. Occasionally, in the newspapers, you can still see the news of him and Shanks fighting somewhere. From these messages, Orgrim also determined one thing, that is, Shanks, the unlucky boy, has not found his crew so far and is still alone. This seems to be the case in this past life, because his first crew member was Usopp's father, Jesus Bulletin. And Jesus Bulletin only left after Usopp was born. Usopp is still gone now, and Jesus Bulletin has naturally not gone to sea to become a pirate. As for the reason in his previous life, Orgrim didn't know. Anyway, this time, it was most likely because Shanks was entangled by Mihawk and couldn't do anything else. That's fine, just let Mihawk harass him. While Orgrim was chatting with Doflamingo, Queen Stussy came over with a strange box in her hand. Orgrim glanced at her, but did not hang up the phone, and asked curiously, what did you get? You may not believe it, but this is a gift given to me by Charlotte Lingling, Stussy said with a smile. On the other side of the phone bug, Doflamingo also heard this and said with a smile, Fufufu, that woman took the initiative to give you gifts. It seems she has a guilty conscience. Is she asking for peace? Peace talks are not possible, and there is no real war. However, it should be regarded as easing the relationship. After all, she seems to be in more danger than me. Orgrim said very calmly. Then, he watched Stussy open the box. Inside was a brilliant sapphire. It was not big, but it looked priceless. It had no flaws at all and was crystal clear. Transparent. There was also a look of love in Stussy's eyes. If you like it, just accept it. I have no intention of falling out with her. Orgrim smiled and said. Is it really okay? Stussy asked with some expectation. Of course there is no problem. If you think it is necessary, just give the woman a gift in return, so as not to appear that we are not generous enough. Orgrim waved his hand and said. What is it? Doflamingo asked from the phone bug. Just a sapphire. Orgrim smiled and said. Ah, Sapphire from the Big Mom Pirates is the only one who is famous, right? She's quite generous, Tears of the Ocean Goddess, Doflamingo said with great knowledge. Tears of the Ocean Goddess? Orgrim murmured curiously. Well, this sapphire is said to have come from the Sea of Gems. According to mythology, it was formed from a tear shed by Thetis, the goddess of the sea, after the death of her beloved man. It is very famous in the jewelry world and is priceless. In the early years, it was hidden in the royal family of a certain kingdom in the New World. Later, it was robbed by Charlotte Lingling, Doflamingo said with a smile. Is that dead old woman cursing me? The tears you shed after your beloved man dies, Orgrim teased slightly maliciously. Fur, maybe. Doflamingo was also very mean-spirited in stoking dissension. But it was obvious that Queen Stussy didn't care about this at all. She held the sapphire intoxicated and carefully admired it, not wanting to listen to Ogre at all. Orgrim did not mind the gem because of this, but continued to chat with Doflamingo. How about the results of the surgery? Is there any news? Orgrim asked. This time Shisky helped him, and Orgrim also wanted to help Shisky remove the rudder from his head as soon as possible. Doflamingo said helplessly, of course there is no news. The fruit of the operation is not that easy to find. Many people are watching. Haven't you noticed that the world government now has a bounty of 5 billion belly? It's more than your bounty. Gee ha 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 ha, Orgrim laughed loudly and said. But it's not like there aren't other interesting news, which may be relevant to you. Doflamingo seemed to have thought of something and suddenly spoke. Orgrim was also stunned for a moment, and then asked softly, what news? Good thing or bad thing? Not good or bad, Doflamingo smiled, and then he seemed to be hesitant and asked, Stussy. What to do? Stussy suddenly turned around and asked the phone bug. Doflamingo suddenly became embarrassed, cleared his throat and said, nothing. Forget it, let's talk about it next time. Stussy was keenly aware of something and asked quickly, young master, what is going on? Before Doflamingo could speak, Stussy laughed again and said, could it be that Lord Orgrim of my family left some romantic debts outside? Orgrim smiled helplessly, and Stussy continued, it's nothing, I'm a very open-minded person. What's more, I am the Queen of Happy Street. After Stussy finished speaking, he glanced at Orgrim. There was really no threat or jealousy, he just smiled very casually. Orgrim was a little puzzled at first, and then he understood something. Stussy is the Queen of Happy Street. Although she has never had sex herself, she has a high level of acceptance of many things. In addition, she came from Mary, Georgia, and the CP agency also has to serve Draco. There is no need to mention the atmosphere of the Tianlong people. And from the perspective of the world, there is indeed a lot of true love in this world, and there are even many monogamous ones. But the atmosphere is still very open, and it is normal for really big shots, or nobles, to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Of course, it's not just men. It mainly depends on status and strength. Look at Charlotte Lingling, she is very chic. She has dozens of husbands going back and forth. She is more arrogant than Orgrim, but she still has no one. What did you say about her? These are one aspect, but at the same time, Stussy also knows one thing very well, that is, Orgrim has no conscience, or he has no intention to focus on love. It was a mistake of his own, but now, even though the two of them are already very close, how much Orgrim loves him, it's not too deep. It's okay to cultivate it slowly in the future. So Stussy didn't think that many women would be able to win Orgrim's favor in the end. Maybe he would have a lot of women, but most of them would be indifferent. This is not a problem at all, and Stussy doesn't want to care about this kind of thing at all. She knew very well that Orgrim was a man who could not be controlled at all. Although it's nothing, it still needs to make me mentally prepared, right? Stussy continued to talk to the phone bug. Orgrim also smiled helplessly and said, Dover, please don't spread rumors about me. I think I am very clean in this regard. In the past 3 or 2 years, I haven't provoked any flowers or plants. Phew, maybe I misunderstood something? You and that Lieutenant General Peach Yosagi from the Navy headquarters really didn't have a love-hate relationship? A forbidden love between justice and evil? Doflamingo asked with a smile. Orgrim looked confused, then laughed, and said, You guys, you must have read too many novels, right? What kind of hatred gives rise to love, what kind of forbidden love, what kind of justice and evil? That woman wants to crush me to ashes. Even if one day, something really happens between me and her, it will definitely be the same thing. I snatched her to Avalon to be the wife of the stronghold, whipping her several times a day and so on. It is impossible to have feelings. Yeah? Maybe I really misunderstood something. You know, my family has a cotter in the Navy, and now Vice Admiral Peach Rabbit has become his immediate boss. It is said that, in the office of Lieutenant General Peach Rabbit, there is a photo of you, the one where you are sitting on the throne of the void. That's why I misunderstood, foo, Doflamingo joked with a smile. That woman posted my photo? Is he really a pervert? Orgrim said in surprise. After a pause, Orgrim asked in surprise, That's not right. Didn't you say last time that your cotter is now working in G-5? He also said that if one of our people meets him, he should take care of him or something. Do you really not know? Vice Admiral Peach Rabbit has been transferred from Marine Headquarters Marineford and has officially entered the New World. She is now the base commander of G-5, so Mr. Hammer, you better be careful. If you really have a grudge against her, maybe one day she will cause trouble for you, Doflamingo said with a smile. G-5? Orgrim raised his eyebrows and murmured, a little strange in his heart. In his impression, the woman in Jun seemed to have always been a boss at the Navy headquarters, and later became a candidate for general. Why did she get to G now? -5 This Navy is in the trash can? Could it be that he is really here to target me? But it's just a Jun, so Orgrim didn't take it seriously. The Navy is weak in the New World, not a Jun. It can be reversed. After Stussy heard Jun's name, she no longer wanted to meddle in other people's business. Because she knew very well that Orgrim, a pirate, could not fall in love with any navy. As for Jun, she knew a little about it. That woman was extremely arrogant and had a strong sense of justice. How could she fall in love with an evil pirate like Orgrim? Ah, yes, if this news is an appetizer, then, the news that the Navy invited the tyrant Bartholomew Bear to join the Shichibukai should be exciting enough, right? Doflamingo suddenly said. Stussy turned his head instantly when he heard this and said, Yes, I also want to talk about this matter, but it's just hearsay at the moment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 337. At Avalon Port, an ordinary merchant ship slowly moored in the port. Then, a young woman walked out of the boat. This woman was wearing a red hat, short lavender hair, a pair of sunglasses hanging on her delicate face, and a burning cigarette in her mouth. She looked of generosity. What's even more exaggerated is her dressing style, which can be called domineering and majestic. The lower body is nothing, just a short skirt, boots, and suspenders, which looks very sexy. As for the upper body, there are only two pieces, one is a tie that hangs directly on the chest, and the other is a jacket that is worn on the body. Yes, there are only these two pieces, and her style is obviously very bold. As soon as I stepped off the port, I heard the sound of a phone bug. This woman took out a small phone from her short skirt at the waist. After taking a look at it, she picked it up very casually. "Hello, Bello Betty here," Betty said with a smile to the phone bug. Yes, this woman is Bello Betty, the future commander of the Eastern Army of the Revolutionary Army. But in Orgrim's impression, she should be a very young woman. I didn't expect that at this time. I had already joined the Revolutionary Army, and more than 10 years later, there were still no big changes. Are women in this world always so magical? But when I think of Jun and Stu, 11 seems to be like this too, as if time has left no trace on them, so there is nothing to make a fuss about. "Betty," the phone bug first called softly, and then asked, "Have you arrived in Avalon?" "You are really good at timing." "Yes, I just arrived in Avalon, a second ago," Betty complained. "That's fine, I'll leave the matter to you, but please pay more attention to safety, and don't think that Orgrim is an easy talker. Don't anger him," the phone bug warned again. All right, I get it," Betty said slightly impatiently. "By the way, Mr. Seong has already joined the Kibbutz under the king." The phone bug suddenly mentioned this matter again. Betty was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Is it so fast? Don't you really think about it more? This matter is very important to us. Both Durag and Mr. Seong have this intention," the phone bug explained it. "Forget it, it doesn't have much to do with me anyway. I just need to handle my affairs and see Orgrim." Betty smiled and didn't discuss these issues more. "Well, stay safe anyway," the phone bug gave one final warning. "I understand, don't worry, not many people know the identity of my Revolutionary Army anyway, and the world government's penetration into Avalon should be limited," Betty complained casually, and then hung up the phone bug. After stuffing the phone bug back into the mysterious skirt, Betty flicked the cigarette ashes, slowly exhaled a puff of smoke and said, "This is it. Avalon. It is really a prosperous place. I originally thought it was exaggerated by the pirates, but now I see, is this Warhammer pirates very talented?" At this moment, a strong-looking man not far away laughed at Betty and said, "Hey, miss over there, do you look lonely? Do you need me to accompany you?" Betty turned her head when she heard this, glanced at the man, then put a bright smile on her face and said, "Really? What about such a good thing? Avalon is indeed a welcoming place. Thank you very much. This is my first time here and I need someone to introduce me to it. It seems that you need help, but everything has to pay for it, you understand what I mean." The man looked at Betty with hot eyes and swallowed. Betty pointed to the port alley not far away and said, "Of course there is no problem, let's go there to talk." 15 minutes later, Betty's character-like figure walked out of the alley. At this time, she was holding a tissue in her hand and wiping the blood on her fingers. "So, it's no different from the rumors. As long as you don't violate the red line of the Warhammer pirates, you have nothing to worry about in Avalon? Pirate paradise, a bit interesting. I don't know if that Kazgarot Orgrim is willing to see me. After all, from what Mr. Dalag said, it seems that guy doesn't have a good impression of our Revolutionary Army either," Betty pouted. In the alley, the strong man just now collapsed on the dark and damp ground, with a bruised nose and swollen face. He had obviously received a heavy beating. "But I am such a beautiful woman anyway. As long as I don't anger him, he won't kill me casually, right?" Betty murmured again. Then, she smiled and walked towards the island where the Warhammer pirates were stationed. In the courtyard, Orgrim was sitting next to the fluorescent grass, holding a book, looking at something on it. So judging from the history of the giant kingdom, what happened 800 years ago doesn't seem that long ago. So can it be understood that they know the truth about that blank 100 years? Orgrim looked at the book in his hand and asked the little lowly Robin beside him. Robin shook his head and said no. According to previous research by scholars, it was discovered that the politics of the kingdom of giants, most of the systems are tribal alliances, and their traditional production method is hunting. Therefore, the national civilization seems a bit wild. They have no special habit of recording history, so even if it is only 3 generations ago, the records that can be left should be not many, maybe some, but not in detail. That's right, Orgrim nodded, indicating that he was taught. Mr. Orgrim, why are you suddenly interested in the giants? Robin asked curiously. Ah, some business recently involves the giants. Well, that's not quite right, that's it anyway. Orgrim said casually. Elbaf's giant warriors are recognized as excellent mercenaries on the sea. Orgrim is also considering whether to hire some giant warriors to enrich their combat effectiveness. But this is currently, it was just a fancy idea, and he had no plans to implement it immediately. However, it would not be a bad thing to know more about Elbaf, so Orgrim was reading here. At this moment, Plank suddenly left, entering the courtyard. He said, Master Zui, a strange woman is here to see you. As soon as he finished speaking, Robin's face turned slightly red and he looked at Orgrim with a slightly contemptuous look. Although she is not very old, she hangs out in the pirate group, and there are veteran players like Stussy around her. Recently, Happy Street has been included in the Warhammer Pirates system. Under the influence of his ears and eyes, Robin's strange knowledge has increased a lot. Orgrim was also stunned for a moment, but he didn't notice the change in Robin's expression. Instead, he said strangely, a strange woman? Looking for me? No reason, right? I haven't done anything bad recently. Gangplank smiled and said, although I'm not sure, that woman claimed to be a cotter of the Revolutionary Army and said that she came to negotiate business with Mr. Hammer on behalf of Darag. Cotters of the Revolutionary Army? Orgrim raised his eyebrows, then laughed and said, I thought they would contact us a long time ago, but I didn't expect it to take so long. If nothing else, they should be here for the arms. Yes, what's your name? Bello Betty. Gangplank nodded in response. Orgrim frowned slightly, feeling a little strange. Did this woman join the Revolutionary Army so early? No wonder she will become one of the bosses of the 4 major legions of the Revolutionary Army in the future. Age is a mystery. When he saw Bello Betty, Orgrim's expression was also a little surprised. He is really bold and bold. Come on, please turn the fan to the maximum. Don't make our guests feel too hot. Betty also obviously noticed Orgrim's aggressive gaze, but she was very used to it. Almost every man would have this kind of gaze when he saw her. Looking at the man sitting behind the desk, Betty was calm on the surface, but her heart was beating fast. There is no way, that is a truly crazy and evil pirate. Although I think he won't kill me if he disagrees with me, I'm still very nervous. Lord Hosgarot Orgrim, on behalf of Mr. Darag, I would like to express my sincere greetings to you, Betty said quickly, bowing slightly at the same time. Lower, lower, Orgrim thought silently in his heart. But unfortunately, I still couldn't understand the story behind the jacket. It's strange to say that Orgrim has seen this before, but when he meets someone like Betty, he always wants to be exposed. Is this a disease? Although he failed to fulfill his wish, Orgrim did not show any regrets. He smiled casually and said, Dalag? I don't seem to have any friendship with him, right? Even if we do, it's only right that you have a grudge. How did your Revolutionary Army find me? Betty smiled and said, that was all in the past. Mr. Darag is no longer a Navy man. On the contrary, he has become an enemy of the world government just like you. I think with your broad-mindedness, shouldn't you care about these little things with Mr. Darag? I think you have a very broad mind, Orgrim cursed. Then, he asked very directly, okay, stop talking so much nonsense. I have no interest in your revolutionary army at all. What does that guy Darag want to do when he sends you to me? Just tell me. Betty's expression was a little awkward, but she quickly adjusted her mood and said, that's it, Lord Orgrim, our revolutionary army system has gradually become stronger, just like we want to build a powerful army, our revolutionary army also has this need to fight against the world government. It seems that the revolutionary army is going to form its own army. This is normal. As for them telling him the news, Orgrim is not too surprised. Because once the formation begins, it will be a big move and almost impossible to hide. Telling yourself sometime in advance that this pirate, who has no conflicts or interests with them for the time being, does not seem to be something that deserves special attention. Especially when they ask for themselves. Then what? Orgrim raised his chin and asked slightly arrogantly. Seeing Orgrim's indifferent expression, Betty felt helpless and could only continue to explain, but although our revolutionary army has many people, we can't arms. So, you are here to buy arms from me, why don't you just say no? Still talking about this for so long. Orgrim waved his hand and directly interrupted Betty. Then, before Betty could speak again, Orgrim said unceremoniously, the world government is willing to pay a 20% premium to buy the big money from me, buy arms in bulk, as much as you want. If your revolutionary army wants to buy it, it must exceed this price. In fact, although the world government bought arms from Orgrim at a price 20% higher than the market price, and promised to take as much as they wanted. But Orgrim always only gave them 30% of the quantity, and the remaining 70% is still circulated in the dark world at the market price. This is not because Orgrim has any objections to the world government and is unwilling to make more money. It is because he does not want to hand over the market to the world government in the future. These bastards suddenly stopped buying, and the market in Orgrim's hands was suddenly empty. Isn't this embarrassing? As a merchant, sometimes it is necessary to cultivate a market that is sufficiently resistant to risks. It is also useful to diversify shipments. There is a certain demand. Now if there is another big buyer like the Revolutionary Army, Orgrim will be more relieved. Although Orgrim also looks forward to the Revolutionary Army joining in, he will not be here because of this. The price is lenient. Compared with the world government, the Revolutionary Army is obviously more eager for arms. After all, the world government can make some of them by itself. As for the Revolutionary Army, besides robbing them, they just buy them. They can't make them for the time being. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 338. New World Gambling Island. The Sphinx is currently in the Don Quixote family's residence, preparing to say goodbye to Doflamingo. When she came this time, she got the weapon fruit from Doflamingo, and also met a Ronin gambling friend, which was a great harvest. After playing out for so long, she was satisfied, so she was about to leave here. Are you really not going to play for a few more days? I heard Mr. Chui say that there will be nothing going on over there for the time being. Doflamingo smiled and said to Sphinx. Sphinx held a glass of juice in his hand and drank 2 sips with a slightly satisfied expression. Then he shook his head and said, I won't play anymore. I am also a warhammer after all. As a leader of the pirate group, you can't be too distracted from your job. After I go back, I will eat the weapon fruit and develop this ability. Yeah? You are quite motivated, Doflamingo joked with a smile. I have no choice but to see that Neiman and Dai Peng are all stronger than me, and even that guy Aniro has become very powerful. If this continues, I will really become the weakest cotter. Such embarrassing things cannot happen to me. Now that I have abilities that are suitable for me, of course I have to work hard, the Sphinx said helplessly. Furo fura, that's it, Doflamingo said with a smile. At this moment, another figure walked into the yard. Sphinx looked back with a curious expression because she had never seen this person before. This person, he is about the same height as Doflamingo, about 3 meters, and his face is decorated with heavy makeup. Compared with Doflamingo, he looks more like a joker. Doflamingo's body, wearing a pink flamingo feather costume, and that person was wearing a black flamingo feather costume. Like Doflamingo, his hair color is also light golden, but Doflamingo he has neat short hair, but his is slightly longer, and he wears a slightly ridiculous red cloth hat on his head. This is, the Sphinx murmured curiously. Then, she saw this man walking on the flat ground. There was no obstacle under his feet, but he suddenly fell down and fell to the ground in a very embarrassed state. Before anyone could speak, he seemed to be quite used to sitting up from the ground. He was not in a hurry to stand up. Instead, he took out a cigarette from his pocket, bit it on his mouth, took out a match, and lit it. Cigarette. He looks like a melancholy artistic young man. As a result, the match was thrown away casually, blown by a gust of breeze, and fell on the black feather coat behind him, directly igniting the guy's clothes. But he didn't seem to notice. He slowly exhaled a puff of smoke and looked at Doflamingo and Sphinx with equally surprised expressions. Doflamingo rubbed the corners of his eyes helplessly, as if his mentality was broken. The Sphinx was stunned for a moment, then suddenly laughed. Ha 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 ha, is this the comedian you invited? How awesome! This guy is so interesting. Who is he? Are you a new member of the Quixote family? Why have I never seen it? The Sphinx said with a laugh. Doflamingo stretched out his hand and twitched his fingers. Then, a bucket placed not far away was lifted up by invisible threads and poured directly on the guy. Turned him into a drowned rat, and the burning fire behind him was also extinguished. As for why Doflamingo put a bucket of water here, the answer seems to be obvious. Corazon, although I have told you many times, I hope you will not be so careless next time. What if you hurt yourself? Doflamingo sighed. The man named Corazon just reacted at this moment. He wiped the water stains from the ends of his hair and nodded towards Doflamingo, but he didn't speak. Then, Doflamingo looked at the Sphinx and said, "This is my brother." Younger brother? Do you have a younger brother? The Sphinx was stunned. Doflamingo nodded with a smile, and then continued, I have been separated from him for many years. He was found not long ago and returned to me. Usually he doesn't like it very much. He showed up, and I don't know why, but he seems to have lost the ability to speak. When the Sphinx heard this, his expression was slightly dull, and then he said, I see, do you want me to go back and ask Nightingale for you? His medical skills are very good. Doflamingo shook his head and said, no need. Of course I took him to the doctor. There is nothing wrong with his body and his vocal organs are normal. The doctor said he should be suffering from psychological trauma. Autonomously closed off the idea of speaking, this is a psychological illness, and perhaps with some enlightenment in the future, things can return to normal. When Doflamingo said these words, there was a rare gentle smile on his face. It can be seen that he is still very concerned about his younger brother. After all, this is the only relative he has true blood connection with. That's right, the Sphinx nodded regretfully. Is his name Corazon? No, isn't this the Cotter code name of your Don Quixote family? Top Cotter, the Sphinx asked a little strangely. Yes, this is just a code name. In fact, his real name is Don Quixote Rocinante. In short, if we meet somewhere in the future, please take care of my useless brother. Doflamingo laughed. Sphinx patted Doflamingo's arm carelessly. Well, she actually wanted to pat Doflamingo on the shoulder, but the problem was that the height difference was too big and she couldn't reach him at all. Then the Sphinx said with a heroic face, don't worry, we are good friends. Your brother is my brother. I, the Sphinx, will protect him. If anyone bullies him on the sea, when I met him, I shot him in the head. Doflamingo couldn't help but laugh when he saw the Sphinx's heroic appearance. In fact, he also had some doubts in his mind. How old was the Sphinx? Who is older, she or myself? After all, I have known Sphinx for several years, but her Lolita look has never changed. I heard that a few years ago, when Mr. Hammer first joined Shiji, the Sphinx had always been in this state. At that time, I seemed to be a little guy too. If you calculate it this way, maybe she is really older than me? Although I was very confused, it was somewhat rude to ask a woman about her age, especially for someone like Sphinx who obviously cares about whether she is treated as a child. It was even more unforgivable. So Doflamingo finally suppressed his curiosity, nodded with a smile and said, "Thank you so much, Sphinx." Then, Sphinx did not talk to Doflamingo anymore. What to say, ready to leave here and return to Avalon. Doflamingo smiled and sent her out of the courtyard. Rocinante was still sitting on the grass wet all over. After watching Doflamingo and the Sphinx leave the courtyard, he slowly took out another cigarette from his arms. The cigarette was not wet with water. After biting it on his mouth and lighting it, Rocinante's expression that had been pretending to be crazy and acting like a fool all calmed down. It seems that the relationship between the Don Quixote family and the Warhammer pirates far exceeds our Navy's predictions, Rocinante murmured softly. He is the adopted son of the Sengoku Admiral of the Navy. When he was young, he and Doflamingo got lost and was picked up and adopted by the Sengoku Admiral. Over the years, I have been training at the grassroots level of the Navy, and I am now a lieutenant colonel in the Navy. I came back this time for a mission, which was to obtain important information about the Don Quixote family and the Warhammer pirates through Doflamingo. Especially now that Stussy, the intelligence officer closest to the Warhammer pirates, has rebelled, Rocinante seems to be the intelligence officer closest to this level. So the burden on Rocinante is still very heavy. Unlike Doflamingo, Doflamingo's heart is full of evil and destruction. Rocinante, on the other hand, seemed to be the opposite of him, filled with thoughts of truth, goodness, and beauty. It has to be said that Doflamingo may be a born villain, but Rocinante is definitely a saint on earth. That's right, this guy has a mother's heart. He is a pig teammate and a model of cheating. Before there was any news about the success of the operation, Doflamingo actually didn't have much hope in repaying this kind of thing. Therefore, when he treated Rocinante, he had no other bad intentions at all. He just wanted to take care of his long-lost brother. It was obvious that Rocinante had no strength, was still confused when doing things, and couldn't speak, but Doflamingo still gritted his teeth and gave him a top cotter position. It wasn't until the surgery fruit appeared that Doflamingo thought about asking his brother to eat the fruit, become a person with abilities, and give himself immortality surgery in the future. But he didn't expect that Rocinante had already betrayed him before that. He even said that from the moment he came back, he had no peace of mind. Forget it, it can be explained clearly from the standpoints of justice and evil, Navy and pirates. Rocinante can also be regarded as a righteous extermination of relatives. But his subsequent series of tricks made the warring states period cry. The world government entrusted the Navy to complete the transaction of the surgical fruits, and the Sengoku Admiral was the overall person in charge. As a result, Rocinante, who was in the Navy and the adopted son of the warring states general, didn't care about these nonsense matters at all. He directly took Trafalgar Law with him, stole the Navy's intelligence, and forcibly gave the fruits of the operation to cut off. And his starting point was to save Luoyi's life. The starting point must be good and kind, but his behavior is really a scam. As a naval officer, he tricked the Navy and completely destroyed all the arrangements made by the warring states general. As an adopted son, he even sold out his godfather, warring states period. In the end, Not only the Navy's operation to obtain the said fruit failed, but the intelligence infiltration of the Don Quixote family for many years also returned to before liberation. Anyway, this guy's tricks are simply earth-shattering. Whoever you want to be a teammate with, just don't be a teammate with him. Otherwise, if one day his mother's heart breaks out, you will suffer a loss. The Navy headquarters had previously believed that the relationship between the Don Quixote family and the Warhammer pirates was very close, but in the end both parties were independent pirate groups. Ultimately, the Navy's assessment is that the two sides have a very close cooperative relationship. But now, Rocinante believes that the relationship between the Don Quixote family and the Warhammer pirates is no longer such a simple interest-binding partnership. It can even be said that between them, more like one piece. It's just that in name, Doflamingo maintains his independence. Compared with the controller of the Don Quixote family, he seems to be more inclined to be the core cotter of the Warhammer pirates than the controller of the Don Quixote family. Compared with other cotters, he has greater autonomy. Rocinante didn't know whether the state was maintained deliberately by both parties or because of some individual circumstances. These still need to be investigated. But, it seems that this state is also good for him, because the closer the two parties are, the more opportunities he has to obtain information about the Warhammer pirates. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 339. Highwan Calendar, Mid-Year 1504. In recent times, the World Conference is about to be held, and the Navy and the world government have been very busy preparing for the World Conference. The rest of the forces on the sea, including the Warhammer pirates, did not take any special actions. Except for the Great Pirate Era, which was still turbulent, there seemed to be no special changes. If there are any major events, the first is that the army formed by the Revolutionary Army successfully overthrew a country again. This was just before the start of the World Conference. This incident also made many participating countries worried, and it also made the world government pay more attention to the Revolutionary Army. Compared with previous revolutionary events, the Revolutionary Army is now more planned. The country that was overthrown this time did not fall into the chaos and disorder of the past. Instead, it quickly established a new order and took on a completely new look. This phenomenon has made the world government wary of the Revolutionary Army. There are rumors that at this World Conference, one of the main topics of various countries is how to effectively combat the Revolutionary Army. As for another major event, the tyrant Bartholomew Bear officially joined the Shishibukai. And unlike the other two kings of the Shishibukai, Bartholomew Bear has a very close relationship with the Navy. Although Moria and Crocodile both bear the title of King Shishibukai, in fact, so far, Moria has only helped the Navy with one thing, and this matter ended up being dirty. Not to mention Crocodile, he simply stayed in Alabasta and never paid any attention to the Navy. But Bartholomew Bear was different. After joining the Shishibukai, he quickly withdrew from the New World and moved directly into the Marine headquarters, Marineford. This made many people on the sea very puzzled. On some levels, Bartholomew Bear is indeed different from the other two kings of the Shishibukai. After all, whether it was Crocodile or Moria, they were all big pirates who failed in the New World, and they were the kind who had to withdraw from the New World. As for Bartholomew Bear, from the time he hung up the pirate flag to now, even after entering the New World, he has never been defeated. His strength and ability are very powerful. Many people call him the invincible tyrant, and even think that he is currently the most capable pirate who can challenge the four Orgrim people. However, at this time, Bartholomew Bear directly joined the King's Shishibukai, quit the New World, and moved into the Navy headquarters. This is simply incredible. Avalon, in the headquarters of the Warhammer pirates, Orgrim is looking at some documents. What is explained above is exactly the matter of the 1st Legion of Avalon. Under the command of Douglas Barrett, the 1st Corps quickly took shape, and 20,000 people had already joined the establishment. There was no big difference from the previous plan. 2/3 of the junior officers were composed of fishmen, and the remaining 1/3 were composed of humans. There are 20,000 people in the entire Legion, 13,000 of whom are strong fishmen, and the rest are humans of Avalon. According to Douglas Barrett's next phase of the plan, after the 1st Legion has completely formed its combat effectiveness and belief, it will gradually expand its army. Afterwards, the 1st Legion was directly transformed into a legion dedicated to the fishmen, so that they could more fully demonstrate their combat effectiveness in naval battles. Orgrim is reviewing this plan now. After thinking about it for a while, Orgrim felt that there was nothing wrong with Barrett's idea. The advantages of forming a professional Murloc army indeed outweighed the disadvantages. So he picked up his pen and was about to sign his name on the document. But just halfway through writing the name, a huge explosion suddenly came and the ground shook. Orgrim's hand shook and he directly pulled a flower on the document. "Damn it," Orgrim cursed. As soon as he finished speaking, another burst of explosions came out. Looking at his expression, it seemed that this kind of thing happened often these days, and Orgrim was somewhat used to it. How on earth is that bastard Sphinx using to develop his abilities? Didn't she eat the weapon fruit? Why does it feel like exploding fruit? Orgrim cursed and closed the files. Sitting below, he was also sorting out some documents. Neiman, who was preparing to develop a new city, looked up at Orgrim, smiled and said, I know a little bit. I heard that the Sphinx wants to turn herself into a huge cannon. She said that she will work hard towards Pluto, the king of Hades, and strive to sink an island with one cannon in the future. That is the ultimate in firepower. Romantic or something? Depend on. Orgrim cursed secretly, and then complained, if I let her continue playing like this, I'm really afraid that she will accidentally blow up Avalon for me. That's okay, even though she's usually crazy, she's still very measured. Neiman protected her little sister. She is measured, you won't shoot me as the captain. Orgrim said with some resentment in his eyes. Neiman smiled awkwardly, then quickly changed the subject and said, by the way, why haven't you seen Sister Stussy these days? After hearing this inquiry, Orgrim no longer bothered with the bastard Lolita Sphinx. After a slight smile, Orgrim said she didn't know it recently because she took all the things about Happy Street. It was handed over to Plank because his spy career for so many years was over and he was no longer under pressure. He was always very lazy and had to sleep until the afternoon every day. She is still unwilling to move. Even when she wakes up, she still wants to lie in bed and read a book and take a nap. She has also become very picky about food. I think she is likely to become a waste. So, is Sister Stussy still sleeping right now? Neiman was stunned for a moment and asked. Orgrim shook his head and explained, today is different. It seems that I had a bad stomach yesterday. Anyway, she seems to be sick. She feels a little uncomfortable in the morning and wakes up early. She vomits from time to time. I have asked Nightingale to check on her. Neiman nodded, and then said, so that's it, then after I finish the work at hand, I'll go see her. Orgrim didn't speak any more. He finally worked for once. He smiled, lowered his head and looked at the new documents. Just like that, both of them fell silent. After a long time, Neiman suddenly raised her head and looked at Orgrim, with a look of surprise and shock in her eyes. Orgrim seemed to feel this sight, turned to look at Neiman and said, what's wrong? Is there a flower on my face? No. Big brother, have you ever considered a possibility? Neiman suddenly asked. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then frowned and asked, what's the possibility? Sister Stussy may not be sick, Neiman spoke softly. At such an old age, could she still pretend to be sick? It's not like you need to avoid work or skip classes, Orgrim said a little funny. No. I mean, is it possible that she's pregnant? Neiman asked with a somewhat excited expression. Orgrim, who originally had a smile on his face, was stunned after hearing these words, and his expression froze. Neiman, if you don't mention this matter, he has never thought about these things at all. It's not that he is careless or anything, the main reason is that he has no experience at all. And he has been with Stussy for so long, and there are no safety measures every time so many times before, I didn't see any movement from Stussy, and Orgrim had stopped paying attention to these things. Sometimes, he would also think that Stussy's appearance was obviously different from hers. The age does not match, maybe for some reason, in order to stay young forever or something, she can no longer be pregnant. However, Orgrim has never struggled with Stussy's age, and there is nothing to worry about. If there is any means of immortality in the future, then things like age will be meaningless. But now, everyone is less than 100 years old, what the hell is it? No way, Orgrim muttered hesitantly. You see, she is very lazy, doesn't want to exercise, likes to stay in bed, and has been picky about food recently. This is already a sign, and now she has started to vomit, Neiman quickly followed. Orgrim's expression became slightly more expectant. Yes, I didn't think much about it before, but now that I think about it, it seems like this is really the case. Orgrim smacked his lips and said. Then, he had no intention of continuing to deal with these documents. He stood up and said, let's go. Nightingale should have diagnosed something. Let's go have a look. Neiman also became excited. Without saying a word, she put down her work and followed Orgrim out. Whether Orgrim has children is not just his business. It is also related to the entire Warhammer Pirates. After all, the Warhammer Pirates today is no longer just a traditional pirate group, it is more like a huge evil kingdom. And if you want to pass on this force, Orgrim must have someone to succeed him. But because he is still young, no one would urge him to do these things before. But now if it happens by chance, that is another matter. This is a great event for the entire Warhammer Pirates. As soon as he walked out of the palace, he saw Hank running towards the side in a hurry, with a look of excitement on his face. As soon as he saw Orgrim he couldn't wait to shout, Master Zooey! Quick! What a great thing! Lady Stussy is pregnant. Dr. Nightingale has confirmed it 3 times. I came here specifically to inform you. This voice reached Orgrim's ears. He felt his head was spinning and he couldn't react for a while. On the contrary, it was Neiman who excitedly grabbed Orgrim's arm and moved towards Stu. He ran over to the courtyard where 11 was. After being dragged for 2 steps, Orgrim suddenly stopped and said to Hank, quick, go find the Sphinx and call that bastard girl immediately. Stop everything you are doing and stop studying her abilities on Avalon Island in the future. Let her play on another island. Now on Avalon Island, all artillery and thermal weapon fighting are strictly prohibited. Don't shock Stussy. Yes, Mr. Hammer, Hank responded quickly. After all, if there is a huge explosion suddenly one day, Queen Stussy wakes up from her sleep, causes a miscarriage or something. I'm afraid Mr. Hammer will really go crazy. I don't know how many people will have to die to extinguish his anger. Orgrim hurriedly walked to the door of the house, took a deep breath, and then entered the courtyard. At this time, the door was open, just right. He saw Nightingale sitting in the living room, holding a teacup in his hand, drinking tea. Opposite him, Stassy's figure was still the same as before, and she followed with a smile. Nightingale said something, and it was obvious that she was in a very good mood. Orgrim rubbed his hands and walked in with Neiman. Captain Orgrim, Nightingale smiled and greeted Orgrim. Stussy looked at Orgrim with excitement. Orgrim first nodded to Stussy with concern, and then asked in a deep voice, "Nightingale, don't make any mistakes for me. If you let me rejoice in vain, I will kill you this year. All the funds have been cut off. Don't worry, the joy is definitely not for nothing. What do you think of me? I am the best doctor in the world." Nightingale said with a smile. Her tone was very confident. Orgrim breathed a sigh of relief, and then asked, "You guys, didn't you drink oolong tea before coming here?" "Hello." Nightingale let out an unhappy cry. At this point, Orgrim finally laughed and said, "Gee, ha 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 ha, this is probably the best news I have heard this year. Please give me flowers and monthly passes, big guys." A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 340. East China Sea, Gothic Island. This is an ordinary island that is not well known in the East China Sea. There is an ordinary town on it, also called Gothic Town. At this time, in a tavern in this small town, Shanks is sitting here all alone. There was a bottle of wine on the table in front of him, and a knife hanging from his waist. He looked ordinary and didn't attract anyone's attention. He was holding a reward warrant in his hand, and the photo on it was of a clown with a big red nose. Yes, this photo is the reward for Bucky the Clown. However, as a former crew member of One Piece, even as a trainee, the bounty is ridiculously low, only a mere 3 million belly. There are two reasons for this. The first reason is that Bucky is a bad guy. After all, he is a man who has been in and out of the Grand Line and the New World several times, and even visited Sky Island. But after the Roger Pirates disbanded, he completely abandoned his former identity and never mentioned his identity as a former Pirate King crew member to anyone. After the execution in Rogtown, he never left the East China Sea again. He just quietly became a little pirate in the East China Sea, with 3 or 2 big cats and kittens in his hands. Because he is particularly keen on finding treasures and is low-key, there is nothing special in the East China Sea. Therefore, Bucky has not come up with any tricks so far, and the bounty is very low. Most people just think of him as a little guy. On the other hand, it's also because Bucky's strength is real. Unlike Shanks, a fellow trainee who was also a trainee crew member but failed, his strength has not grown much over the years. On the contrary, because it has been nestled in the East China Sea, its strength has dropped a lot. Shanks has been staying in the East China Sea for a while, always wanting to find Bucky, an unlucky kid, and rekindle their relationship with him. But unfortunately, there are so many naval bases in the East China Sea, but they can't catch this cunning guy Bucky. Shanks was alone, so it was naturally difficult to find Bucky's whereabouts. So till now, Shanks still hasn't been able to see his good friend. Damn it, didn't I say this guy was in Gothic Town? Where did he go? Shanks glanced at the bounty order again, complained a little helplessly, and then put the bounty order away again. But compared to Bucky, at least in terms of bounty money, Shanks seems to be better. Because he hasn't had a bounty on his head yet. When he was on Roger's ship, he was just a trainee crew member, one of the only ones with no bounty on his head at all. After the Roger Pirates disbanded and Roger died, Shanks, it can be considered that there has been a lot of commotion. For example, when O'Hara was in the Western Sea, he fought with the Navy with Orgrim. Later, Mihawk often made trouble for him, and the two also caused trouble at sea. There have been several battles between swordsmen that shocked the world. Even Orgrim, Whitebeard, and others paid attention to these battles. But the problem is, although Shanks said he would continue to be a pirate, he has not yet formed his own pirate group, not even a subordinate. The Navy looked at the situation, observed it again, and investigated. After discovering that except for O'Hara in the West Sea, where he was coerced by that bastard Orgrim and had trouble with the Navy, this guy was extremely honest. They neither robbed nor caused harm to all parties, nor did they actively attack the Navy. It's just a little bit of petty theft from time to time, just to make ends meet. In addition, he was alone and not a threat. In the end, he simply ignored this guy and pretended that he didn't exist. He was not given a definition of a pirate at all, but was classified as a private master with unknown intentions. To put it simply, it's like Bartholomew Bear before the pirate flag is hung, or Fujitora Isho or something like that. It is estimated that if the situation continues, as long as Shanks does not cause trouble himself, the Navy will have no idea of taking action against him. The sea is already messy enough, so don't add more trouble if you can. After all, this guy is still very strong. Feeling bored, Shanks opened the wine bottle on the table and poured himself a glass of wine. At this moment, the door of the tavern was suddenly pushed open, and a cool autumn breeze blew in. The big men who were drinking were chilled, and they turned around to curse and look like they wanted to get angry. As a result, when I looked back, I saw a man with eyes like a falcon, wearing a set of decent aristocratic clothes and a top hat, with a black broadsword behind him, standing at the door of the tavern, looking at him with a very cold expression. Toward the tavern. In just a moment, everyone recognized this guy, and their original anger immediately faded. Hawkeye Jorakol Mihawk is the leader of the Warhammer Pirates, one of the four most powerful pirate groups in the world, with a bounty of up to 770 million Baileys. It is estimated that all the famous pirates in the entire East China Sea have a bounty that is not as large as his own. And this guy is also very famous in the East China Sea, because as a leader of the Warhammer Pirates, he hardly moves in the New World. Instead, he often appears in the East China Sea. Many people swallowed their saliva, never expecting that such a ruthless person would appear in this indifferent tavern. Although they were intimidated by Mihawk's name, many people were not particularly afraid, mainly because Mihawk had a rare good reputation among pirates. He would not do anything cruel and bad for no reason. His biggest notoriety is that he likes to fight against swordsmen from all over the world, regardless of the occasion. Most of his crimes were the destruction of towns during duels. Therefore, as long as you don't offend him, unless he is particularly bored, he will not kill people casually. In the past few years, Mihawk has defeated almost all the famous swordsmen in the world. Except for those reclusive guys, there is almost no one who can be his opponent in the way of swordsmanship in the sea. Except Shanks. But Mihawk has never lost to Shanks in swordsmanship. Most of the time, the two draw, and a few times, the battle ends badly. Because there was no way to tell the winner, Mihawk was particularly interested in Shanks. And now, due to his continuous accumulation over the years, he has a vague reputation as the world's greatest swordsman. He may not be the strongest, there are still many people in the sea who are stronger than him, but in the way of swordsmanship, he is almost at the top. In the past, there was a sharp aura on Mihawk's body, and when he stood there silently, he felt a slight sting. But now, he no longer has any special aura on him. If it weren't for being so recognizable, having so many auras around him, and being so handsome, he would just look like an ordinary guy like Shanks. He glanced at the crowd in the tavern, and then stopped in a corner. A smile appeared on his originally cold face. "Shanks, you are indeed here," Mihawk called softly. Shanks is a loner, and it is difficult to find Bucky in the East China Sea. But Mihawk is very naughty. Don't look at him wandering around on the sea alone, but in fact, the Warhammer Pirates are behind him. With the resources of the Warhammer Pirates, it is still safe to find someone in the East China Sea, especially recently, a top intelligence force like Happy Street has also been included in the Warhammer Pirates. Within the system of the thieves, it is more convenient to do this kind of thing. After all, this bastard Shanks is also a romantic figure. Happy Street business is all over the world, including the East China Sea, and he goes there often. Unlike Mihawk's happiness, Shanks felt a toothache when he saw Mihawk. After all, you are also a big cotter under that guy Orgrim. You don't care about so many things in the New World, and you chase this little shit like me every day. What are you doing? Is this man sick? Seeing Mihawk striding towards him, Shanks also looked at him helplessly and said, I said, Mihawk, don't you feel sorry for Orgrim? Mihawk walked to Shanks' table, pulled out the seat, sat down very naturally, and then unceremoniously handed over the wine glass that Shanks had just poured into it before he even had a chance to take a sip. He got up. After taking 2 sips to moisten his throat, Mihawk frowned slightly and said, it tastes really bad. I can't compare to your family's big business. My life is very hard. It's good to be able to drink, Shanks said unhappily. Why am I sorry for Orgrim? Mihawk suddenly asked. Shanks' face twitched, and then continued, don't you feel ashamed that you spend his money every day and wander around all day long? If you have time to trouble me, why not go back to the New World and help him do more things? I don't agree with your statement. The improvement of my strength is the improvement of the strength of the Warhammer pirates, which is beneficial to the entire Warhammer pirates. Therefore, it is reasonable for me to travel, hone my strength, and discuss with you. So I don't feel sorry for Orgrim, Mihawk said very naturally. Shanks looked at him, opened his mouth, and finally said feebly, I have been a pirate for more than 10 years, and I have never seen such a shameless person. For a moment, Shanks thought that he might as well join the Warhammer pirates. Look at the Warhammer pirates, they are so free. Mihawk is famous all over the world. Running around and spending a lot of money. It is said that you don't have to pay for going to Happy Street. He is a senior member. Even his behavior can be called training strength. In fact, it is just a free prostitution. Huh. If that's the case, I think I can do it too. Huh. It's strange, why do I feel so envious? You've been a pirate for more than 10 years and you haven't had a bounty on your head. I really don't know how to evaluate your pirate career. Mihawk said with a smile. This sentence is very heartbreaking. Shanks looked bitter, picked up a wine glass and poured himself a glass of wine. After taking 2 sips, he continued helplessly. I think if you hadn't been chasing me all the time, I would have found at least 5 partners by now, formed a relatively powerful pirate group, and were having a party with singing and dancing in a small town. Are you swaying away the looted treasure, instead of being like now, I'm avoiding you while looking for that bastard Bucky, and I can't even find any of my friends. Maybe, but I think this kind of thing depends on fate, it probably has little to do with me. Mihawk shook his head and said very seriously. Shanks felt like his old blood was about to spurt out. After forcibly suppressing his resentment and calming down his mood, Shanks said, what are you going to do this time? Are you going to fight again? Of course, I have a lot of experience in the last battle. During this period, I seem to have made progress again, so I just came to you to confirm it. Mihawk nodded and said without hesitation. Shanks felt like he had a lot of experience. Mihawk, this bastard, would fight him every time he found him. After the fight, he turned around and left. Disappeared for the past 3 or 2 months, and would always find him again in strange places, and then start fighting again. The cycle repeated, making Shanks miserable. Although in this process, he felt that his strength was also rapidly increasing. Enhanced, but very passive. It was as if he was being raped, and he was unable to resist, so he could only hypnotize himself into enjoying the feeling silently. There are benefits, but I feel very unhappy. But unfortunately, he couldn't avoid Mihawk, let alone the Warhammer pirates. It's uncomfortable. Captain. Roger took another sip of wine in pain. Mihawk didn't think much about it. In his opinion, this was something that was completely beneficial to both parties. It can be felt that Shanks' strength is the same as his own, and he is advancing rapidly. Then he should be very happy, right? I feel happy to help others. It's better to choose a day than to hit it. I think the weather is sunny today, which is a good day for a duel. My hawk directly invited a fight without waiting for Shanks to speak. But before he finished speaking, the phone bug he was carrying suddenly rang. My hawk frowned slightly, and when he took it out, he saw that it was the contact from the Warhammer pirates, so he looked at Shanks and said, "Don't move around here, I'll buy 2 oranges. Shanks. Answer the phone bug, answer the phone bug, what oranges should I buy? I clearly know you are looking for an excuse, but why do I feel like you are taking advantage of me?